us more.
Banter, isn't that the name of an animal in Star Wars? The banter.
The banter, sure. I think it's a badger, but yeah, banter, badger, it's all the
The
same.
banter.
Yeah,
So
the badger.
when I was walking,
Yeah.
you said, "Listen, we're going to do this show slightly early because one of us is pulling a sickie." We call this in British culture. We call it pulling a sickie. Do you know what that is? Have you heard that expression
I
before?
do not. I've had a girl pull my sticky, but I don't think I
No,
know
no,
what your
no, no,
sticky.
no, no, no. Pulling a sickie. It's called sick
Yeah,
leave. The
what's
sick
that?
leave
A sick
is
leave.
when the sick leave is in sort of mainstream society, which in itself has changed. But in mainstream society, sort of working to middle class society, if
Okay.
you want, if there is a particularly important football match going on at home, or
Right,
your
right.
wife insists that we have to go to a specific wedding in the middle of nowhere, or you
Okay.
basically just want a day off and you
Yeah.
think you deserve a day off. You think you do.
I
What
never
you do
take
is
a day off.
it's called pulling a sickie. You call into the office and say, I'm
Um,
not feeling great today.
yeah, yeah.
And most often what will happen is HR will send you an email saying, get well soon, and that's the end of the
Right.
matter. That's called
Okay.
pulling a sickie. Now the reason I
Oh,
use this expression today
I can't
is
wait.
that
Because I was been pulled a sticky.
one of our colleagues, who I will not mention,
Lisman.
well, I didn't mention him, right?
All right.
I
You
didn't
said you
by
weren't going
proxy.
to, but
I did by proxy. By proxy. He's
yeah,
not turned up today. Now he's not turned up today for relatively good reason. It's always a good reason when Usman doesn't turn up.
that's
The
right.
reason is that having
Viagra.
not during the Ramadan month,
No, no Viagra.
given that we are crossing three time zones, you're sitting in
Yes.
Texas.
I'm sitting in North America.
I am sitting in North Europe.
Sure, let's go with that. Russian's going to be there
North
next week.
North Europe, North Europe,
Okay.
and Usman is sitting in North Pakistan.
Yeah. Well, we're
So
all
we're
north.
all kind of
Yeah.
in the up there.
Yeah.
He can't make it because at this time he's breaking his fast.
Yeah.
I hope it goes very nicely. I know that if there's any moment in the day that's a holy moment, that 5 minutes before you break the fast
Yeah. Yeah.
means the world could be ending. All you're doing is fixating on that plate of food, and that's what it'll
Gotcha.
do to you. So, notwithstanding additional things that go around that, family and all that kind of thing. So Usman is
Okay.
pulling a sickie. So what I wanted to do was impart a little bit of the London or the UK vernacular
I
into
see
that,
that because he pulled a
and
sticky.
it's you've made it my responsibility somehow to come up
Oh,
for a topic. And as I was saying to you before you hit the record button,
yes.
um, I tried very hard when it comes to these Saturday discussions. And I'm
Hmm.
sorry, I know if you don't mind, I'll get a word in as well because you've done a lot of talking today.
Please.
Um, the uh, the thing, what pisses me
Mm.
off, generally speaking, is what you have to pay for cigars,
Yeah.
right? Because it's one of my biggest hobbies. No, actually, it's my only hobby.
Mhm.
Um, and that hobby is getting expensiver and
Yep.
expensiver and
Oh,
expensiver. I don't know how you feel about that out in the USA,
well,
where
it is. It's getting to the point where I was thinking of that because when I was coming to the studio, and you're like, we're going to talk about cigar prices. I was like, huh, is cigars becoming a rich man's, for lack of a better term, sport? And before we answer that, you know what we should do? We should do this. So we get all the legal stuff out of the way.
This is 2OF Entertainment.
oh, for goodness sake, not again.
Welcome to Habano Saturday, the fastest growing cigar show on YouTube with over 100,000 subscribers. Come join us every Saturday live. Every Saturday
Recorded
live.
even. All recorded.
Or record it if you don't catch the Saturday show because you rebroadcast on Sunday because of Ramadan. So there you go. So, all right. Anyway, you
I'm,
were cigar
I'm
prices.
gonna put you
Yes.
on hold on for 1 second. I'm gonna put you on hold on for 1 second. Watch this. You're gonna have to speak for. You're gonna do dead air for 1 minute. Watch this.
Okay, go ahead. Oh, great. So I'm doing this. So hello, everybody. Welcome to the Cigar Show. Riz has disappeared, so I'm stuck here by myself. We're going to discuss the prices of cigars. So to all the fans that are watching and to the fans that are watching us live that are going to ask questions, that is awesome. And just for fun, till Riza comes back, this is some of the cool things that are coming up on the show over the next few weeks when everybody gets back. Yep. So next week, don't miss Habano History with Usman, and everyone will be here, I think. And if not, it'll be after Ramadan. And just to get the show going, one more thing, one more commercial, and then we are back. You can wait now. We're running a commercial.
Not the PRF commercial.
Yes, actually, before then, I ran the cigar history stuff.
This is mildly amusing because we live in this social media world, right? And we're
Yeah.
doing all the recordings.
Yeah.
When the postman is delivering stuff, even in the middle of the show, one has to go running to get the post.
Seriously.
I kid you not. I had
Oh
a
my
delivery
God.
today.
That's too funny.
And I have no problem saying it either. Now, let me say this. Back to the topic, cigar prices. There's a reason why some of this is lingering in the air.
Yeah.
I'm on social media from time to time.
Yeah, that's an understatement. Go ahead.
No, what I mean is I'm observing a lot of social media. I actually don't watch regular terrestrial TV here in the UK anymore. If I watch anything, I'll watch it on Prime or Amazon, and mainly YouTube. And watching YouTube is a disaster story because YouTube will suggest 100 different videos all the time based on the stuff that you're watching. And mainly my stuff is, like cigar, travel, etc., etc., etc. But one of the cool things is if you watch YouTube, you basically get what used to be called alternative media. You get news without having watched the news. You get all sorts of news and interviews, and you understand the world in a perhaps different way, perhaps a more contrived way, and from time to time, a little bit more serious way. And someone said something recently, which is why my mind is quite buzzing around the cigar price issue again. And this was about being in the world of austerity right now. So basically the UK and absolutely everywhere else in the world, but I'm very UK centric. People are going through a cost of living crisis. Everyone is going through a cost of living crisis. The only people who are not going through a cost of living crisis are the millionaires and billionaires.
No, even they're going through a cost of living crisis. Don't let the zeros fool you.
No, what I mean is this. Everything is obviously everything is comparative, right? But what's happening is the cost of living in those words, the cost of living. Means that people are basically beginning to fall over subsistence level. They're getting to a stage where they're having difficulty paying for heating and electric, and we're getting to that stage, right?
Yeah.
And and we may always have been at that place, but given that the world is a far more, I won't say informed place, but it is a more aware place. You know what's going on on the other side of the planet on a daily basis. The relevance of local news has gone down. The relevance of global news has gone up, and you get a kind of feeling. You get a gut feeling of what's happening with prices, whether it's fuel prices, the prices of cars, the prices of food, etc., 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 etc. So in the background of this topic, if we do a show about what is pretty much a luxury item, a luxury consumable. And in my errant thoughts, in fact, when you were talking to me briefly, when just in preparation for the show, and I was racking my brain, we could talk about specific cigars, we could talk about We could talk about regional cigars. We could talk about a lot of things here. But actually, the sticking point, the point that I don't see discussed much,
Right.
it's a bit of an elephant in the room, remains the pricing of cigars, how they're going, in my opinion, to absolutely ridiculous places, whether they're Cuban cigars or not Cuban cigars.
I agree.
Cigar prices are going to disproportionately, because 10-ish years ago, which is not
Right.
too long ago, it's not particularly close, but it's not too long ago.
Right.
Cigar prices, generally speaking, were less than a third, less than
Yeah.
a quarter, perhaps, of what they are now.
Hmm.
I mean, this is a personal guess. I haven't
Right.
rifled through data, but I'm a regular cigar smoker. I smoke maybe 2 cigars, sometimes 3 cigars daily. In this Ramadan period, my cigar smoking has gone absolutely sideways. Um,
As
because I'm
most of
not
us.
smoking. I'm not smoking, and I can smoke in the evenings, but the food stuff takes over and all that kind of stuff. Anyway,
Right.
that's something else. So I've been watching cigar prices for maybe last. I've been smoking pretty much a lot for the last 20 years, and we can see that trend. We have the benefit of
Right.
the history of trends, and this is. I mean, I don't know if this is too much of a commentary, and I am confident that at some stage, it doesn't have to be next week or the week after. I'm very confident that we should do a very analytical show on the prices of
I'm going to do
cigars.
that. I'm going to actually do that right now for you. I asked ChatGPT while you were talking. Here's what ChatGPT said. Um, Over the past 2 decades, both Cuban and non-Cuban cigar prices have experienced significant increases, influenced by factors such as rising demand, production costs, strategic pricing, decisions by manufacturers, and the greedy bastards need to make more money. I threw that last part in there. In the early 90s,
Which
the
is
average
which is the most relevant part. That might be the
right,
most relevant part.
that's the relevant part because they're greedy little motherfuckers. Anyway, non-Cubans in the early 1990s, the average price of a non-Cuban cigar was approximately $2.93. Yeah, good luck with that. In 2022, the average price of a non-Cuban cigar is $12.04. Now, the cigar boom in the 90s was price climb with the demand for instance, Davidoff Anniversary #2 increased from $13 to $14 from 93 to 95. During the Great Recession, that's really the Depression of 2008, which we're still not out of, but call it what you will. Cigar prices stabled, where the average cigar price was $8.16. In 2009, it went to $9.26. And then let me just give you one last thing on so the average price today in America is about $12.04. Cubans in 2022, Habano, as I say, the company that controls Cuban Cigar, implemented significant price increases, particularly for premium blends like Cohiba and Trinidad. This move to attend the global price, especially higher prices markets such as Hong Kong. And they're also greedy motherfuckers who needed the money. For example, the Cohiba Robusto saw its price rise approximately from $64 to £70. The Especial reached 97. Your BKH 52 is now 230.
Yeah.
Your BK 54 is 290. Your BK 56 is 320. In 2025, prices adjusted where BK went up 22%. And let me see if there's that we can ask
22%. No,
more.
22% in what period?
Just in 2025, the prices have risen
Yeah,
22%.
well,
And
yeah, yeah.
we're only 3 months
So,
into
so no. So the
2025.
point I'm making is that in the last 10 years, maybe they have
Yes,
tripled. Is not I don't think that's an unfair statement to make. Okay,
I think you're
you
right.
can plus or minus 5-10%, right? Um, the point is this: that it's become. This is a little bit of a disaster story if I actually say it out loud, right?
Right.
But if you go to smoke a cigar, I mean a Cuban, let's stick to the
Stick with Cuban.
Cuban
Right.
market, right? If you go smoke a Cuban cigar, you're spending at a very, very low end for a Robusto size cigar,
Right.
maybe 32, 33, 34 pounds,
Right.
all the way up to infinity, depending
Yes.
on if it's a regional edition, if it is a limited edition, if it is an aged cigar. Uh, it is this. So that's where there's a big price difference when it just comes to the freshly delivered regular stock. Even the
Mhm.
prices there are a bit ridiculous. I used to pay 15 years ago for a Cohiba Siglo 2 something anywhere between 15 to 25 euros,
Yeah.
right? And it's about triple that now.
Yeah.
Um, so what I fail to understand, this is, I will admit, down to pure ignorance. If you go to Cuba, I mean, Cuba is a limited market. There's only X number of factories. There's
Right.
only X number of fields. It's not like they've franchised Cuban cigars out to the world and they're growing Cuban
Hmm.
leaves everywhere. It's in Cuba. It's a cottage industry.
Right.
Cottage industry. I mean, we have cottage industries in Pakistan that make beautiful silk hangings and cashmere
Right.
and things like that. Never go up in price at that rate. But the Cuban cigar industry, which I like to complain about, but I like to also no. The thing is this: I believe in the slap and kiss.
Right. Right.
Okay. If I'm allowed to kiss, I should also be allowed to slap, and I mean this in this context, right? I don't
Oh, I
mean
was gonna say because in Hilda's
I don't
House of
mean
Pain, you
I
get
don't
that
mean it,
all
right.
the time.
I mean, fair,
So
it's called fair's fair, right? I'm a
yeah. Yeah.
customer. You're a customer,
Yeah.
right? We should. There are times when we wax lyrical, and there's also
Right.
times where we just simply don't like what we're being provided. Sometimes it's not
Correct.
service. Sometimes it's the product. Sometimes it's the price. Sometimes it's all of those things.
Right.
And what I'm finding this a good sort of like a social experiment. I look at cigar smokers, whether they're in
Mhm.
lounges, whether in social media, or whether
Right.
they're at events, and I'm wondering what's going on in people's brains.
Right.
Is this sort of like sheep-like mentality just to go with the flow? And then, I mean, I might be skipping from topic to topic to topic, but what
That's
I
fine.
kind of feel is that this push is social media has been massively influential in
Hmm.
pushing the cigar culture.
Yes.
Massively
Yeah,
influential.
because they can't advertise anywhere else other than Cigar Aficionado. So they have
There
to
you go.
not advertise, but promote it into a luxury lifestyle brand.
So,
Um, that's why. So people are
so
like, well, that looks cool. But guys like you and I, we started to smoke in our 20s. It's a little different. We were smoking before it was cool. Cigars I'm talking about.
well, with the very clever trick, whether it's a trick or it's scheme or
Right.
whether it's a ploy, whatever it is that the big cigar owners, the cigar company owners, whether it's
Right.
the Cubans, the Habanos people, whether it's New World, what they've worked out is you let your customers promote through social media,
Right.
right? You promote a lifestyle, you promote a way
Mhm.
of living. I don't know if you know this, but do you remember the martini extra dry adverts from the 70s and
Yeah,
80s?
sure. Yeah.
The martini time of day. It's the
Right.
martini time of day with this very, very nice music and people
Yeah.
skiing and going F1 racing and
Yeah. Yeah.
very 70s, very kitsch, very
Yeah.
nice.
Very
But what you
Austin
did,
Powers.
you weren't buying a drink. You
Right.
were
You're
buying a
buying a lifestyle.
lifestyle.
Yeah.
You were absolutely, obviously, overtly saying, "Oh, I want some of that,"
Right.
right? I want some of
Right.
that. Now, martini as a vermouth
Hmm.
may or may not be one of the best vermouth. It may or may not be. I don't know. Jury's out, right? But certainly there is a lifestyle thing going on there. And the
Hmm.
drinks industry understood this long before anyone else understood this.
Hmm.
So in the cigar industry, I say industry, it still remains sort of a cottage industry, which has gone
Right.
global. It is about lifestyle. And lifestyle on social media is very distorting because people want to pay for lifestyle.
Right.
Doesn't matter what their lifestyle actually is.
Yeah.
It's a form of escapism. And once again, the jury's out as to whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. You're entitled to go on holiday. I go on holiday 2 times a day for an hour and a half
Yeah.
when I smoke a cigar.
That's what I said. I told everybody I take my mini
And
holiday
and
for
and
2 hours
and
a day.
Habano should take some cues from people like me, because that's a
But
very good. That's a ridiculously good thing I just said. Go on a
I know.
holiday,
Yeah,
go to a
but we've
holiday,
said that on
Cuba.
the I say it to everybody when I'm going to smoke a cigar. I say I'm about to take my whether it's a 40-minute holiday or a 2 hour holiday because it's like
Some people like to dress up as parrots and smoke
right.
cigars, right? Yeah,
There you
that's
go.
their holiday, right?
There you go.
Yeah, some people like to sit quietly in a lounge and smoke a cigar. That's
Or
their holiday,
Or I
right?
like to just be sit wherever and like unless I'm with mates that I really like, I would rather just be by myself and just enjoy nothing. Like just the beauty of the outside or the beauty of where I am. And if I don't be with the problem with cigar manufacturers, whether it's Habanos or New World, is they think, and I mean this, if you will, metaphorically, they're gods, right? It's like, oh, we're going to push whatever down your throat and you're going to blah, blah, blah. To what you usually say as a joke, it's just dried leaves, which is true. It's dried leaves. However, the problem is that while they think they've got this new market with Hong Kong and China, and that's the only reason things are really going up is because the people in Hong Kong and China, they're like, oh, we can smoke cigars. And they're all excited at some point it's going to be like in the 80s when I was smoking cigars before it was fashionable in the 80s. In the 80s cigars they went up a little bit because everybody was like, oh, we got to smoke cigars, it's cool. And after about 5 years that died down and cigars went back to normal. So this is kind of like this bump for them. But what they forget is that real cigar smokers like you and I and most of the fans, the aficionados, at some point they're going to be like, you know what, I can find something better or worse. I don't need this. And they forget that. They're going to price themselves to a point where they're out of the market. And people are going to be like, you know what, I'm not going to spend 75 pounds a stick to smoke a cigar. I'll go find something else. I'll smoke. I know this, you'll cringe.
Well,
I'll go smoke a
even
New World cigar, type of thing.
so, there's a new trend in
Yeah.
just to address literally that audience. There's a new
Yeah.
trend, and I noticed this. Uh, I mean, it's been going on for a while, but it's kind of been ramped up. Is the
Right.
shorts, the
Yeah. Yeah.
short
I've seen
cigar,
those. Yeah.
the short and the minis.
Yep. But those aren't cigars to me.
Do you remember me telling you I bumped
Yeah.
into
The
the
to Luke.
EGM?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Luke,
that's it, the
the guy
EGM
who
guy.
never watches the show and doesn't tell us things we need. Yeah, I remember.
Well, that's just part of it. But in the Habanos Festival, which
Right, right.
Usman will tell you about when he eventually comes back onto the show,
Yeah, one day.
um, the thing about Trinidad shorts,
Right.
there's a whole market of,
Mhm.
in my head, they're kind of cigarette-sized
Yeah,
cigars.
right.
It's an accessible, sort of a financially accessible product for a starter
Right.
to buy. So let's say I'm not that much into cigars, but I'm
Mhm.
sitting around cigar smokers and I don't want to feel like a nitwit and left out.
Yeah,
And I want to smoke the same thing. Someone's smoking a Trinidad and it's like 200 pounds. I can smoke
right.
a Trinidad short for maybe 15, 20 pounds, right? It'll give me a little bit of a kick. Yeah, well, no,
Eh,
this is for the entry level market. This is the people
okay,
coming into the
I get it.
market.
To me, that's not a cigar. You're smoking a cigarette. I don't care
it,
what you
it
say.
it's
It's a
it's
cigarette.
it's it's filling some sort of market gap, right?
Right.
At an
It's sure.
economic level.
It's an accessory. Yeah. It's for
Um,
how do I put it? It's not for an aficionado. It's
you
for
see,
somebody who
you
says,
see,
I want it to be cool.
I have a friend who recommended, and this was about a year and a half ago. He was holding the Trinidad shorts. We were at
Right.
we were an outdoor. We went out at a cigar lounge, and I was at a loss for anything to smoke. He said, "Try a Trinidad short." And I was
Yeah.
smoking it, and I said, "Yeah, yeah, this really gives me." I mean, just like in an emergency, I was not going to say emergency,
Right.
but I was standing, having a few drinks,
Right.
and we were puffing away, and I said, "Yeah, this is actually really quite good. It really gives me a really good hit."
Yeah.
Yeah, I can smoke it outdoors. I'm not smoking an expensive cigar where I have to take over my time. It's a 10-minute smoke, if that.
Right.
Um, and so it almost sounds like I'm advertising it, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Right.
in a kind of way, I am, because it does fulfill. There is something it fulfills, but what I'm trying to say is that very, very sneakily or smartly, the manufacturers have worked out, well, hang on, we need to cover all of our bases.
Right.
I'll do my car analogy. 35, 40 years ago, Mercedes Benz only
Hmm.
really had three cars.
Right.
They had an S class, they had an E class, they had a C class.
Oh, I thought
right?
you meant work, not in the shop and in the shop. Okay, sorry.
No, they
Go
had three. They had three,
ahead.
basically just
Okay,
three models: the big one, the
gotcha.
medium-sized one, the smaller one.
Right. Sure.
Okay, and
Totally
each of
lost.
those cars came in a
Mhm.
range of different engines depending on what you wanted to spend and
Right.
what performance you wanted, right? So you would have an S420, an S500, and an S6 or a 600 SEC or whatever it may be, right? So you
Right.
had a few
Right.
different engines, but three different models.
Right.
And then in the 90s, we saw Mercedes bringing out no end of
Mhm.
ranges.
Right.
So what they were trying to do is trying to do a car for anyone. So if
Right.
you got a budget of £12,000 or a budget of £300,000, you should go and buy a Mercedes. It was that
Right.
kind of branding, that kind of marketing,
Right.
if you know what I mean. Yeah,
Sure.
something for everybody,
Right.
right? Now, how do you do that in a luxury product
Like cigars.
industry like cigars?
Yeah.
And I feel more and more. Now I'm trying to be very analytical. I'm trying to be very serious because Osman's not here. I can't go off on one, and I can't go off on one against both of you. So I'm just trying to stick
You
to a
could be.
kind of
You go
serious.
off on one of your tangents. It's okay.
No, but
But
the
wait.
what I'm trying to say is
Right.
that as much as I say that I don't like New World cigars because they don't suit my palate, I always find
Right. Right. Right.
there's nothing there for me. There's no
Right.
complexity, no richness. It's always either the volume is totally on or the volume is
Mhm.
totally off.
Right.
Or it's that,
Right.
right? Imagine if you're into light jazz music, if
Hmm.
you're into okay, so give you a go. If you're into light jazz music and someone marches you into a heavy metal concert,
Like an
right?
AC/DC.
It would
Yeah.
just destroy your senses, if you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
what I mean,
Sure.
right? And there's a happy medium between that and complete silence, which is sort of
Right.
like jazz music that has its ups and downs.
Hmm.
So that's what Cuban cigars are like, right?
Right.
Anyway, the new world cigar industry seems to be the only kind of viable, economically viable way into smoking cigars. And that's why I'm seeing no end of people smoking what I call crap cigars. Okay,
Right.
I
Right.
can
Right.
still
I know
joke
you don't
about it.
like the new worlds. Yeah. Yeah.
They're crap cigars. But you
Yeah.
see a lot of them being launched, a lot of them
Yeah.
being, and there's no end of them. It's like you could take a choice. You're not even loyal to a particular brand. Oh, I'll try this one, I'll try this one, I'll try this one, I'll
Yeah.
try this one, I'll try this one, I'll try this one. Right? That's what's happening. And I don't know where this pricing of Cuban cigars is going. I can complain all day long.
Right.
I think they're quite smart. I think the people who are running these industries are quite smart. I'm
Yep.
not trying to do them a disservice. They know exactly what they're doing. They've worked it out.
Yep.
But what's going to happen is, as you were perhaps saying, is one day they're going to price themselves into a
Too high.
corner.
Right. And it doesn't matter how much money you have. You're just gonna be like, this is stupid. Like, there's gonna be the idiot. Like we talked about that Rocky Patel anniversary cigar that was $100, which I smoked, which I thought was crap. And I said to him, how is it? And he was like, I bought a box. I'm like, good for you, asshole. How is the cigar? Like, what's the complaint? So there's going to be always that idiot that is going to want to say, I spent this much money on a cigar or this much money on a bottle of scotch or blah, blah. There's always going to be that idiot. I am an idiot in a lot of ways. That I'm not. I don't need to impress anybody with what I smoke, which we all know because my go-to cigar is the CAO Brazilian Amazon. The only CAO I smoke, by the way. The others are crap, in my opinion. Um, Even some of the Fuentes, like their Opus X's, there's only certain ones I'll smoke, but I have to feel like, and I mean this in the nicest sense, pissing away anywhere from $20 to $60 for a stick. Even when I smoke Cubans when I'm outside the United States, and I'm talking cigars. It's the same thing. Like when I'm in Dubai, I go to my guy, at the chemist or the Habano store, and they never have cigars at the Habano store. I've got to go to like the chemist down the street, and I'll get my Partagas. I'll get and I pay whatever, and I'm like, okay, it's worth it. And then if I go to Asia, what I pay in Dubai is 5 times more expensive in Asia because they know the Asian market. It's like in London, like Dubai, I'm getting like a discount, and I'm like, oh, I'm happy. But and at the airport, forget it now. There's no anything. So it's to me, it's like it's the pleasure of doing it. So for New World, I find New Worlds like the Padron 1926. Theoretically, that's just as much as a Cuban cigar, and they're going to price themselves out of the market. But there's going to be those idiots that are like, "Oh, I smoke." Good for you. There's other great cigars out there. Um, to the other point, in the New World line, there's a million different brands. Like if I go to like abc.com, so to speak, and look at all the New World cigars, it fills hundreds of pages. If I go to like EGM or one of those guys and look at the Cuban cigars, it's like here's the 35 brands. That's it. So there's a big
27.
difference in that. Yeah,
27.
27. So my point is, you have 27 brands and they think they are capturing this global market, and look at us, look at us. And some of these New World guys are coming out with cigars that are getting equal to the Cubans. And once somebody masters that and can put flavor and smoke and everything together, then the Cuban cigars, people are like, yeah, it's Cuban, big deal. Like I said, the only reason Cuban's fascinating to Americans is because they can't get it legally, unless they leave the U.S. and go smoke elsewhere.
And may it stay that way forever.
Well, Trump is, it's they just put out a travel list, and Cuba's you can't, bad. So I keep talking to Donnie. I should be the cigar czar, so I can get all the Cuban cigars to test them.
So on the counter side of this, side, I can imagine someone from Habanos asking me, "Well, Reza, what the fuck do you want us to do about this?"
Right.
Right. What is the solution? What is it you're proposing? What is it you're?
Yeah.
So here's what I think is going on. Someone like me, when it comes to, so I don't anymore. Maybe this is a sort of like a personal cigar journey. I don't see. Okay, I see Cubans as one product.
Okay, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
I see Cuban cigars as one product.
Right.
In my head, I don't. We might talk about Monte Cristos, we might talk about Ramon Alones, we might talk about Sancho Panza.
Right.
A bit like the octopus. You have the head, but these are just legs of the octopus. I still see it as one animal.
Right.
Okay. Now, what my enjoyment is, and I hope it stays this way, my enjoyment is, and my favorite cigar sommeliers know this about me, is that I like to smoke around brands. I like to smoke. I will smoke, the Sancho Panza. I will smoke the Vejique, the Cohiba. I will smoke, and a lot of Cuban cigar smokers, I find, do that. That's what they do. So I'm not unique in any sense by thinking. And I'm only saying it out loudly. I think this is what people think. They think of this as one brand. They think of Habanos as a brand.
Right. I agree with that.
I mean, it is.
Yeah.
When it comes to New World cigars, that's not how people think.
No, it's every brand's outfit. Like Davidoff's a brand,
Each
Rocky
one for
Patel,
themselves. There's
CAO,
no right. So I was at the Dominican Cigar Festival 3 years ago. It's called Pro Cigar, and it's called Pro Cigar because that word Pro Cigar is basically an association of a certain number of major Dominican growers. I didn't take. I don't know how many because to me it's a fluffy industry. It's a great industry, by the way, but the product is fluffy. The product is fluffy. That's a personal opinion. Honestly, if someone disagrees with me, just disagree with me and put my opinion in the bin. Yeah, but it's fluffy. The product is fluffy.
Yeah.
Okay. So they tried very hard, are trying very hard, and perhaps succeeding on creating this Dominican leaf branding.
Right.
In the same way that Cuba has the, Puros, the Habanos thing going on. There is an advantage and there is a disadvantage. The disadvantage is what I've been ranting on for the past half hour, is because when you become such an animal, you control the pricing. Right? Which is a disservice to your regular consumer. I am not a bad consumer. I am not your best consumer, but I'm firmly somewhere in the middle. You can work out where in the middle I am, right? I have the ability to smoke. I have the ability to rant. I have some social media, which I don't do it for any, I don't do it for any business. I do it because I enjoy it. It's my catharsis. It's my way of
Right.
extending the pleasure. It's my way of sharing, just the way that Usman is, just the way you are,
Right.
and many others. But one of the good things about having some form of forum or social media outlet is you can say, "Oh, I like this." "Oh, no, I didn't like
Mhm.
this," and "I like the way this is going," or "I don't like the way this is going." I think that the
Right.
best product that you sell, the best product, Cuban products come out of the UK because the importer is the best importer in the world. I can say things like
Right.
that.
Right.
I can say things like that and I can get away with it. So the service that should come back to the consumer should be to help the consumer smoke more and more and more. In my opinion, it's a
Right.
sort of,
Right.
it's a mutually parasitic process when it comes to
Right.
this animal, right? You've seen those big
Right.
sharks swimming around. They've got those lampreys stuck to
Those
their
little,
back, cleaning them,
they're
right?
stuck them
It's
cleaning up the
mutually
leftovers. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly.
Mutually
It's a
beneficial.
very mutual process.
Right.
So the answer I would give if Habano said, "Well, what do you want to do this?" I would produce a range of cigars, and I'm not talking about these shorts.
Nah,
I've
those are
referred
crap.
a range of cigars that are fairly easy to get into at a market level.
Right. Right.
Right now, I did see something like this emerge very recently. It's not cheap, but it's not overly expensive.
Okay.
I smoked it a few times. I may have mentioned it on the last show. Was this Floricano Selectos number 3, which was released maybe 6 weeks ago, and it's
Okay.
sort of between 40 to 50 pounds. It's a regional edition. It's
Right. Right.
Yeah, you're paying more for something that's been blended for the UK market. It's a UK regional. Um, but I thought, okay, no, this is actually an attempt to produce something a little bit more accessible.
Right.
Um,
But
and
40 pounds though, for a lot of people for a smoke
No,
or a
but
cigar,
having
if
said
you
that,
will.
it's a bit of an exclusive one because they've done as a limited number of boxes. I'm
Right.
not. I'm not agreeing. I still think these things are. I mean, ridiculous. We've got so used to spending this money, we're not even calling it out for what it is. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's just dried leaves with a paper band in a wooden box,
Yeah.
and
The
not even
Cuban,
wooden
the Cubans
boxes.
must be
Now
laughing.
these come in paper cartons now. So even
Oh,
that is
really?
going. Well, so
That's crazy. Well, CAO doesn't come in a wooden box. It comes in a cardboard box. The
but
Padrones, and they still come in a nice wooden
it is
box.
village industry. It's cottage industry stuff. It's
Yeah.
done very sophisticatedly. It is, right? But
Yes.
my complaint, and it is an open air complaint. Without, it's more of a prediction. Let's call it prediction. I think
Right.
that unless these big cigar companies get their act together,
Hmm.
they will eventually find that there's a downturn on this bubble. The bubble
Hmm.
may not pop. It may not pop, but it may just dissipate slowly,
Yeah.
if you
That's what
know what
happened
I
in the
mean.
80s.
A
Yeah.
bit
But you
like
knew with the stuff.
a bit like a ring of smoke which goes
Yeah.
into the
Just
air
kind
and
of fades away. But in the
hangs.
80s,
It
you know,
hangs.
you're too young. You're too young to remember the 80s. I'm talking
Yes,
about
I
the
am.
year 80, not 1980, but the year 80 when I was around. But in the 80s, in the early 80s, cigars were all the craze. Now I had been smoking a few years before the craze because of my grandfather, so that was fine. And then I remember when it was like everyone had to have a cigar, and I'd go to my chemist and I'd be like, I need a box of whatever, and he's like, we don't have them. I'm like, dude, you need to keep a box for me because I'm like a real customer, and there wasn't online ordering and there wasn't wholesalers, so you had to go to a chemist. Um, and then after about like I said, 4 or 5 years, like it was in the mid 80s, it exploded, and then toward the end of the 80s, it just died down. And then again, all of a sudden, I want to say the
Yeah, actually, you might be
2000s,
right
it
about
became a
that.
thing.
There was that 80s kind of
Yeah,
period
there was
where
an 80 pop, and I remember that. And then in the 2000s, and then nothing really. The 90s was the 90s, but then all of a sudden in the 2000s, all of a sudden it's just started to creep up a little bit. And a lot of the creeping up when I talk to other people in the industry is because of the Asian market, which it's Hong Kong and China, because they were like, yeah, we have the money, we can do it. And so now it's gotten to a point over the last 25 years that it's sort of getting to be like, the sport of kings all of a sudden. It's like, it's nothing, nothing's for the common man anymore. I mean,
mm,
I'm sure there's, you know what I'm saying? And it's funny that they do that because back in the day, that's what cigars was for, the common guy, not just the rich people. So
well,
the New World cigars, some of them like I'll pick on CAO because I like that one cigar. So the CAO gets it. So they don't really, their CAO Brazilians are the same price for the last 100 years. Opus X and all these others are like, oh, look how fancy schmancy we are. It, okay, big deal. Rocky Patel, I think all their stuff is crap. We talked about my father's cigar. We don't like those. So it's really, they blend it for, like, if they can get 10,000 or 20,000 people to like their blend, that's a business. Where the Cuban market has to blend for, if you will, millions.
I'm gonna make a bit of a prediction.
Sure.
I don't need to, but I'm making this prediction primarily because I want it to come true. But I also feel no, because you have to emit the energy out to the
That's
universe.
true.
If you
I
emit it,
know.
then right. So I'm gonna make this prediction.
Right.
I predict that
But Donald
over the
Trump's a
next
transvestite.
over the next 5-ish years,
Years. Okay.
this nonsense about not being able to smoke where you feel like it
Yeah,
is
goes away.
gonna go away.
And you have to
Yeah,
thank
and
Donald Trump for
I
that.
have this I have this gut feeling
Yeah.
that the world is going to reverse on itself a little
Yeah.
bit. And
Donald
in
Trump.
terms of smoking, well,
He's the one who's going to cause it. He's getting rid of the woke. He just got rid of climate change. There's an article yesterday in the FT that all the U.S. companies are taking down anything to do with DEI on their websites and climate change because Don says it's a hoax. Then it's a hoax. Now Donnie just has to say he can smoke everywhere, cigars only. That'll be beauty. I would like nothing more than to be able to smoke cigars in my office.
I think cigarette smoking is going to be replaced in
Cigars.
a mainstream way by cigar smoking, even more than this vaping nonsense. Yeah,
Vaping is crap.
And I have a feeling that the catalyst that's going to push it there is over the next 5-ish years. It's a guess.
Right.
There's going to be a little bit of a reverse on anti-smoking laws.
Yeah,
right?
I think a lot of it's going to be because of Donnie. Donnie's
I
getting
think
rid of all that crap.
I think it will be partly market driven, partly
Right.
because governments will understand that at the end of the day that the tax revenue
It's huge.
offsets anything else. There are no, things like health considerations. These are all false, in my opinion. This is all total. No, this is nonsense dished to you to extract more money from you.
Right.
Whether the concerns are real or fake, what's pushed, anything that is pushed to you, because we live in a world right now where people make the rules up as they go along. It's obvious that people just make up rules, right? To subjugate people like you and I. I said this on a show 2 or 3 weeks ago. I can't get from my house into central London in 40 minutes, but a billionaire in 40 minutes can fly halfway across the planet. Yeah,
Right.
There are different rules for different people based on how much power and money. Those are not two. They're not the same thing in my book. Money and power are two different things, right? But a mixture of those. And what's happening is, it is obvious. It is evidently obvious. It's always happened. But now it's evidently obvious because everyone has access to social media and everyone talks about these things. That just people in power just make the rules up as they go along. And power doesn't have to be right at the top. It can be at local power. It can whatever. Now, the issue of smoking, open air smoking or smoking in public places, is a weird thing. We've had it like we've been able to smoke ever since smoking was around. All of a sudden, the last 20 years, you can't.
Yeah. Remember when you could smoke on
All of a
airplanes?
sudden,
That was
you
great.
can't. All of a sudden, you can't. Right?
Yeah.
But you can. But you can if you pay enough. You can.
Well, I told you the story when I was in Seattle. This is the first time you told me to try a Camacho. I was in Seattle, and what?
Seattle.
Okay. Seattle for the Americans, Seattle for people that don't speak English. Anyway, when I was in Seattle / Seattle.
You mean the English?
Yeah.
You mean the English?
You people. Yeah, right. You people. You can't speak English. I understand.
I'm not English, but I'm sitting in the English.
Yes, I am. Congratulations. You're sitting in the George Washington channel, according to JD Vance and Trump. Anyway, so when I was there and I got all excited that I found this Camacho that you wanted me to try, I was in a meeting and I was like, hey, I'm done. I got 3 hours to kill. I'm going to go have it. I called the chemist and I said, do you have this cigar? He goes, great. I go, what's your cigar lounge? He goes, well, you can't smoke. I go, I'm sorry, what? I said, you're a cigar lounge. Yeah, and I was looking at pictures. There's nice chairs, and he goes, yeah, but you can't smoke in our building. It's against city ordinance. I'm like, I'm sorry, what? And he says, you can smoke outside. Now, meanwhile, outside is like, oh, I don't know, 3 Celsius. And I'm like, no, I don't. He goes, we have heat lamps. I mean, good for you. I said, I have a flamethrower. I can burn your building and I can smoke with a nice flame too. I mean, but I want to enjoy, and a leather chair, not a wooden bench when it's cold. And he's like, yeah, you can't smoke anywhere in Seattle at all at a cigar shop. I'm like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. So these rules that are stupid. And I remember, and I told the story once before when I was in New York, I like to walk around and smoke cigars. I remember I was standing on a corner, just smoking cigars, not selling myself. And this lady stood next to me and she looked at me with this disdain, like I was smoking a cigar. I was killing her and the pollution and terrible. Meanwhile, as she's looking at me like she wants to kill me, this bus back in the day when they had buses that ran on gas, petro, black smoke comes out of the back of it. And I looked at her with this grin as I'm smoking and going, and you're worried about my cigar? And I just kept going. And I'm thinking to myself, it's so stupid. And the other thing is, you're all going to die. Who gives a shit? Enjoy your life. Let people smoke cigars. And cigarettes, no. Cigars, yeah. Like, let them do it. I don't understand this whole, like, you can't, who cares? It's a cigar.
It's you see the problem is
Mhm.
it's always to do with education in one way. It's always to do with ignorance and
Right.
and the lack of education. If I don't know anything about a hobby or a sport,
Right.
I have no interest in it whatsoever. Right?
Right.
I don't watch sport
Right.
really. I was
Right.
always of the opinion either you play spectator sports are
Right.
not like it's not for me. It's just not for me. Right?
Yeah.
So I
You either
played.
own the team or you play. I got it.
Well,
I
you're on
got
a team
this.
or you play, right? So I played rugby for
Right.
15
Yeah.
years, right? Okay, but I
Yeah.
don't watch. When I was playing, I would watch. But
Would
now that
watch.
I'm
Right.
not playing, I don't get it. It's not something for me. So in that way, I
Right.
lose it. You lose interest in the thing that you're
Mhm.
not part of. And I find that a lot with people who don't smoke cigars or who've never
Mhm.
smoked cigarettes or whatever. Now, cigarettes in itself as a product
Mhm.
to some extent, demonstrably was a dangerous product to some extent.
Right.
And it wasn't just the cigarette smoking, it was the secondary smoking. I was around my father when my father was smoking cigarettes, and we thought nothing of it. And this was in the early
Right.
70s. You thought nothing of it. It was just part of life, the
Right.
Marlboro Man kind of thing, etc.
Mhm.
When people sneer down their nose at you or tell you, I have aunts, my mother's sisters who said this, and I said, well, listen, if you know anyone who smokes cigars and knows his cigars, it's me, right? Okay,
Right.
yeah. So I think I'm in a pretty good place to tell you the reality of the situation. The reality is smoking a cigar is nothing like smoking a cigarette. The
Correct.
process of smoking a cigar is different. You don't inhale into your lungs.
Right.
The leaf you're smoking is a pure leaf. It's just like someone burning leaves outside. If someone was
Yeah.
burning leaves outside your house, you wouldn't have a problem with it,
Right.
right? Right? Because that's what people
Right.
do.
I know.
When the gardener comes and clears up the leaves after fall, and often in on relatively, it used to happen a lot in this country, but it doesn't happen. You would just burn the
Right.
leaves. You'd have a
Yeah.
little burning set, right?
Yeah.
These are just leaves. These are organic leaves. There's no pesticides used. It's
Right.
organic leaves. You're
That's all a
smoking them.
cigar is just a
Yeah,
leaf.
it's a
People don't get it.
and it's a, oh no, smoking is really bad for your health.
Hmm.
I see. Listen, you've been indoctrinated for 30 years. Only
Yeah.
in the last 30 years have people suddenly said smoking is not good for you. Right?
Hmm.
Before that, you were able to advertise smoking.
Correct. Yeah.
Right? So unless I mean, not go out of your way to educate people, but there's no real understanding of this industry from the outside. But what I'm understanding now is that in terms of human sort of civil liberties,
Right. Right.
in terms of, I think there's going to be a rebound
Hmm.
that's going to take place in a relatively short frame of time, and not just on things like smoking, on many other
Right.
things. You could see the signs that they're coming. I mean, I'm not just talking. I hope I'm not just talking gibberish here. You can see the signs that there's a
Hmm.
rebound coming on.
Everything. Like I said,
I hear that the new Disney movie, the Snow White movie, is
yeah.
gonna crash because this suddenly the anti-woke brigade is
Right,
as
right.
strong as the woke brigade.
Yeah, yeah.
Post-COVID, if you remember how much the Me Too movement and
Right,
this
right, right.
and that, they were like, boom, flavor of the month. Now it's almost the exact opposite is flavor of the month.
And that is because you have the orange man in the White House, and he's basically saying, pardon my French, fuck you, everybody, and this is the way it is. And people are like, okay. And I said when I listen, the Demo on our side, the Democrats were too worried about too much bullshit. And I'm a lot of stuff I agree with what Trump's doing, a lot I don't. But part of this woke thing, I'm glad that this is gone. I mean, say what you want to say, do what you want to do to, as long as it's legal, except I guess if you're Trump
I
and
don't think
Elon,
it's.
do whatever you want.
I don't think
But
it's gonna. I think what we've got. I think what we've done is society for the last, especially since COVID, has been like a
right.
spring, and that spring someone's let go, and it's just oscillated in different directions,
Right, but now
and
you
it's going
have
to keep
a
doing
world
that.
leader that says, "I don't give a shit," and I think that's why you see the woke movement dying. Like he goes, "No more woke, no more." So you have a world leader doing it. Before, all the world leaders were pussies, and now you have a world leader going, "You know what? Screw this shit." And everyone's like, "Okay, I like that idea." So I think what's happening is we're going back to being human beings again, where people are going to have opinions and they're not going to where you can't cancel, you can't, and that's becoming important.
Cancel culture, yes,
Yeah,
very, very,
cancel
very
cultures.
important.
That's bullshit.
I
That needs
think
to always
cancel
be canceled.
culture has been
Yeah,
has been
canceled. I've
cancelled.
been canceled. I will tell you a funny story about cigarettes, though. My dad smoked cigarettes like your dad. My dad was in the hospital. This had to be probably late 60s, early
Yeah, you can
70s.
smoke in hospitals.
He was, I remember he had his oxygen and he was smoking a cigarette. And I'm a kid and I didn't really think anything. And I look back at that, I'm like, you had like emphysema and you're smoking a cigarette. Yeah. Like it wasn't a big deal. Now, granted, the chemicals and all the crap they put in a cigarette, very harmful, but
Yeah.
the cigar's not. And the FT did a article, it had to be back in the early 2000s. They did it with Oxford and another university that were studying cigar smoking, and it was fascinating. And it said that cigar smoking, pure tobacco, which is what a cigar is,
Yeah.
actually is good for people because it prevents Alzheimer's. And it gave a list of things that cigar smoking actually does for you. It's on the healthy side, not the negative side. And I said, and this is before FT was online where you could save
Well,
stuff, or I would have saved
uh,
it. But
but can
I
you
thought
can
that
you
was a
but
great
you
point.
can't really blame people. I mean, like I get agitated, as I said, with family members who say, oh,
Right,
smoking, but you can't blame them. They've had 30, 40 years of anti-smoking lobbying, and they don't smoke either, and they don't
right,
smoke either. So
right, right,
it's not something they indulge in. They've been told it's really bad.
right.
It's a reason to sneer down their nose at other people,
Hmm.
right, who smoke. Yeah. But if you go to places like
China,
France,
India.
Paris, no, if you go in Europe,
Hmm.
anywhere where there's a prevalence of outdoor eating and
Right,
dining,
right.
like you get it a lot in France, you get a
Yeah.
lot in Italy, yeah. People would sit there, you have your coffee, you have your
And
cigarette.
smoke.
It's a
Right.
lifestyle thing,
Yeah.
right? And getting it that out of, like, if you're standing outside a station anywhere
Hmm.
in Paris, forget Paris, anywhere in France, you stand outside a station, and this happened to be no end of times. And if I'm
Right.
smoking a cigarette waiting to be picked up by family or whatever it is,
Mhm.
or I've just got out of the station, I light up a cigarette, someone will come up to you and say, "Can I have a cigarette, please?"
Yeah. Can I bum
Right?
one? Yeah.
Can I bum one? And it's not considered rude or disrespectful.
Right.
It's part of that smoking culture, like Um, so, and when you're not in it, people are very, very judgmental, very
Right.
patronizing. So, in order to increase understanding, you have to kind of just constantly be out there, kind of defending what it is you do. And
Right.
sometimes it's like this kind of forum where you can say, well, look, cigar smoking is like this. This is
Right.
what it about. The benefits are this. Yes, there is
Right.
a downside. The downside is some people don't like the smell of cigar smoke. But
And
you won't
they should be
find
shot.
any some no, but some people don't. But you will not find people who don't smoke cigars generally sitting in a cigar lounge and absorbing secondary
Right.
um, smoke. And it's a different kind of smoke. The chemical
Right.
composition is different. You don't have all those poisons that come from a cigarette that are used to preserve those leaves so that you don't have to humidify them.
Right.
Uh, um, but
And the other thing is most cigar lounges have you fans that suck the cigar smoke out that would, they'll suck your
That's right.
clothes off of you too. So I mean,
And
you'll smell like cigars because it's just this the smoke is everywhere, but not in the air. It's going sucked out. But
and
that's it.
and so the reason I kind of came onto this part of the topic, having started off on the prices of cigars,
Sure.
is basically to cut a long story short, the reason why cigar prices have gone up so dramatically
Right.
is because the product itself is perceived to be a very specialist
Right.
product, and the industry's taken the stance, well, if you really want to smoke it, you will spend whatever we tell you to spend to smoke it,
To an
right?
extent, I think that's right. I agree with that to an extent. To another extent, like we said earlier, they're going to price themselves to a point where people are like, this is bullshit.
And so the reason I'm saying that, I think the attitudes towards smoking, I mean, the attitude towards civil liberties are changing, okay?
Right.
And I think that will run into smoking. I think you're going to find that if it comes to the stage where you're allowed to smoke anywhere, then
Hmm.
prices are going to have to come down to reflect that.
Hmm.
I
That'll kill
feel.
them. Yeah.
I feel, because right now the pricing is based on the exclusivity of product. Oh, you can only
Right.
get it here. You can only get it.
Right.
And
Right.
you will always have a section of that product that is exclusive, but
Hmm.
you will have something that has to keep up with market usage,
Right.
right?
If
The
they ever
reason
open up
why
the U.S. market, though, you'll see Cuban cigar prices drop like a brick.
one of the reasons, not the entire reason, one of the reasons why the Chinese market is so fervently buying Cuban cigars is because they perceive it as an exclusive product.
Right. It's a special
And,
club.
and exclusivity
Right.
increases the desire. It's like wearing
Right.
a 10,000 pound Prada
Right.
jacket or whatever it is.
Sure.
That's what we want. The thing that we can make this locally, but we want
Hmm.
to pay this for the thing that we can't have. And
Hmm.
we've got the money to do it. This is what
Right.
happened in the Middle East with Arab oil money.
Right.
This is what's happening with China. Anyone who has money wants the most exclusive thing, and sometimes they
Right.
can ruin the market for everyone else.
Correct.
And not necessarily on purpose. It just happens. Those are market economics.
But not only
Uh,
that, but the Habanos SA has figured that out as well. So they're like,
I,
great, we'll keep raising the price and
I
they'll keep buying. But
I
there
have
comes a
a
point where it's going to go on the curb, and then it's just to what we said earlier, it'll come down.
and,
And if the U.S. market ever opened up, the Habano prices would drop, not go up.
and I don't think it's going to happen. I
No,
think
I'm definitely not happening.
and I think that there is market collusion to keep those things firmly in place.
Yeah, which is too bad because I think if it came here, it would open it up, and people would be like, "Oh, that's a Cuban." It's like, "Oh, okay."
I
You
know I
smoked one.
enjoy the fact that you guys can't get Cubans,
I know it's like, nah,
and
nah, 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 boo, boo. Yeah, yeah, I get it.
you have to do your trips to London.
Mhm.
Get over here.
Yeah, yeah, I know. Or I have to send people when they travel back, and they have to bring me, presents. Because you got to bring the emperor something back. But no, it'll be interesting to see to your point, the next 5 years if things change because of the Orange Man in the way of, will you be able to smoke a cigar? I don't think on an airplane, but will you be able to smoke in buildings again? Will you be able to do this again? Like I remember
Yeah, when there's
when we
genuine,
used
I
to go to
mean,
London for dinner. And after dinner, they would come with a box of Cuban cigars. You could smoke right there at the restaurant. It was beauty. Like, you had your
there are
your after
places in
dinner drink and
London.
whatever.
There are places in London
Mhm.
where you can smoke a cigar, have a bite to eat, and a drink all in the same place. There are places.
I've been to the
And
one. It's like a jazz club. I've been to that one. Can't
well,
remember the name. I have the matchbook over there somewhere.
there is the Churchill Bar and Terrace
Okay.
in the Hyatt. Um, it has ventilation issues because it's an outdoor terrace. They've got heaters. There are places, there are places. So that's a bit of a fallacy. But the point I'm trying to make is, if there's one, why aren't there 50?
Right. Right.
And if
Because
there's
here in
50, and
America,
if
you
there's
can do
50,
it.
why aren't there
But,
400?
right.
Because
It's a percentage of
because
sales.
we've had and have we have a very wokish, paternalistic governmental policy here in the UK. We have a
Right.
shitty mayor of London, very shitty. He's Pakistani by origin, complete arsehole.
Okay.
Complete arsehole.
Right.
He's an arsehole because he doesn't take questions, doesn't feel questions. He's left London in ruins in terms of infrastructure. Absolute
Nice.
arsehole. We could talk
Okay.
about him at a different time. But what I'm saying is and it's always about environment first, people's
Right, right,
feelings first, people's culture first.
right,
All of this is for 5%.
right,
All of this is for the 5%. What about the 95% of people that live on planet Earth?
right. I agree. No, I totally agree with that. So, well,
You
but
can
that's
do
going to
what
take.
you can. You can do what you. It is offensive. I find it offensive that people have their hair dyed blue. It pisses me off. Least of
Okay.
all because I don't have much, but
All
it
right.
pisses me off that they're done. But they can do that.
Right, right. There's no law
They
against
can expend chemicals to do that. They can do
it.
that.
Right.
But I can't have a cigar after a
Yeah.
decent dinner.
Yeah.
There could be a cigar area. There could be a smoking area. You know, you used to have
Mhm.
smoking and non-smoking
Yep.
tables. You have,
Yeah.
right. The funniest thing is, I still remember. I remember this. In the late 70s in London, if you went to a cinema, any cinema,
Right. They're smoking.
you know the seat in front of you, on the back of it had an ashtray,
Yep. I
a
remember that in the
receptacle
States.
for you,
Yeah.
and the smoking seats were normally at the back, but you could smoke in any seat, and there was. I say this nostalgic way. You see smoke rising in front of the screen, and
Yeah.
it was like
Hmm.
there's an atmosphere to that as well. And those things are gone. Um,
Yeah.
but I have a feeling things are
Maybe.
coming back. I have a feeling.
Well,
Most of all, I'm saying it.
World War
I'm wishing
Three.
it. I'm wishing it into
You think it comes back?
existence.
Listen, once World War III breaks out, where Russia invades the Ukraine finally, and they keep rolling into Poland, and then the United States has to do whatever, and then you guys are going to need us like you guys did back in World War II. Everyone will be smoking everywhere. It'll be like a Churchill type thing. Everyone will be just smoking cigars, wearing a top hat. It'll be nice. I'm looking forward to it. And I give it another 6 months.
I saw on Instagram a
Yeah.
photo of the outside of uh, Jeff Bezos's house in Beverly Hills,
Okay.
and all you see are, the hedges.
Yeah. Not
Right.
personally, but I know hedges.
No,
Yeah.
so the hedges there are about 30 foot tall.
Okay.
They're massive hedges
Yeah.
for security.
Right.
And on the caption, and it's come up a few times, so I'm assuming this is true. It says in that residence, Jeff Bezos pays $12,000 a year in
Okay.
fines because the hedge is not meant to be higher than 6 feet or whatever it is,
Right. 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 Right.
right?
Yeah.
But he pays the fine to keep the hedges high,
Yeah. Sure.
right? If we lived in a moralistic society
Hmm.
with real enforceability,
Right.
what would happen is he wouldn't keep his hedge 30 foot. His
I see.
hedge would be diminished.
Yeah.
What instead his opportunity is that he's allowed to pay a
Right.
fine.
Right.
So is that fair?
It's like you said at the very beginning of the show. It's the have and the have-nots. If you have it, the rules are different. If you don't have it, the rules aren't.
And
Whatever.
and people are constantly making up rules
Rules for themselves.
as just making them up
Yeah.
as they go along.
Yeah.
Corruption hasn't seen. I mean, like with Donald Trump, right, buying one
Mhm.
Tesla and upping the stock price of Tesla, right? That's fine as far as I'm concerned. But you
Okay.
can't have the person who's sitting in government benefiting from it, because that's not what government's about, right?
Unfortunately, that's America now. America
Right.
is you get the
So
benefit
that's
from your
America,
position.
right? So if that's America, then you live by the sword, you die by the
Die by the
sword as
sword.
well.
Yeah, that's true.
And that kind of government,
We'll die.
that paradigm, I don't believe it's over, by the way. These fluctuations are going, the moment Trump is gone,
Mhm.
the fluctuation will go back again and then back
Right.
again. And then
Right.
back, because this is a flux movement, but that flux will the veracity of that flux will settle down
Yeah.
after a while. I think over the next 20, 30 years.
Right.
Okay. But it's created flux. And I think what Trump's has done is a good thing. Not he's done a good thing. I think the force of Trump has
Mhm.
discombobulated the conventional way of thinking,
Right.
and sometimes for the good and sometimes for the bad.
Right.
But people are making up the rules as they go along. We want to make up the rules as well as we go along.
Yeah.
And then what
So
people will, what the mass will find, if the mass gets its act together, is that the mass can make up the rules.
there you go. And if Habana SA listens to us, cigar prices will
They
even
don't.
themselves
They
out.
don't need to listen to us. They only need to listen to me.
Sure, I'm sorry, I forgot. Well, excuse me. I'm humbled by the. I'm humbled by that. Here, let me make. There you go. Yeah,
Ooh.
yeah. I'm very humbled by that. There you go. But yeah, and
One
even the
man,
new
one
worlds.
man, one man, one
Yeah,
man, and it could be you. It could be
there you
you.
go. It
It
could
could
be
be me.
this. Yeah.
It
If
could be that.
it could be
One
Usman, but
man.
he.
If you're not,
There you go.
if you're not watching the ball, one man will come make a difference and
That's right.
fuck up the market
Yeah.
and fuck it up properly.
Yeah.
So
That's very true.
that's not a threat. That's a promise.
Yeah, and that's what's happening with the Cuban market and the non-Cuban market, not so much because there's
The
so many
non-Cuban
people
market hasn't got its act together because it will always be the non-Cuban market.
Cuban
It will
market
always be
and right.
It'll always be, as far as I'm concerned, Ferrari versus the rest of the world.
You're like you love Ferraris for some reason. I like the older Ferraris, the new ones not so much.
Because I love Ferraris. Well, I love Ferraris and I love Mercedes. I hate Lewis Hamilton, who drives for both, who has driven for both. Right?
He's
Okay. So
driving for
that in
Ferrari this
itself,
year. In fact,
that in
the
itself is
race,
dividing.
the race is in about 15 hours, and I will be watching it live, the
No,
Melbourne
he can
race
go and
tonight. I'm
screw
very
himself.
excited.
But the
Yeah,
thing
I
is
know you
this.
don't care.
The thing is, no. The thing is, when it comes to Ferrari, it's
Yeah.
you know what? There are analogies in the Ferrari history and the
Mhm.
Cuban cigar industry
Right, but
history.
not the new Ferraris. The older Ferraris, yes, I agree with. But after the 458 Scuderia, really, they didn't make Ferrari. They make it like the 812 is very nice and some of the specialty cars, but these other crappy things they're making, like the 296, that's a piece of crap, the 296 and the Portofino. Stop it. That's like a Corvette. It's embarrassing.
The Portofino is one of the worst cars. The Portofino is one
Yeah,
of the worst cars in the
yeah.
California. Is
That's
it
another piece of crap. The
another piece of
Portofino and the California, same pieces of crap. They're
but
SUV. People are returning it because they don't like it.
the one that isn't, that should be a
Yeah,
piece of crap, but it
yeah,
isn't, is the
yeah.
Roma. The Roma is actually quite a nice GT car.
I saw the
Um,
Roma. I'm not a fan of the Roma. I
um,
like I said, I like
it's
the
different if you
Scuderia.
sit inside it and go for a
Yeah.
ride, and then
But I rather listen. I'd rather buy the 458 Scuderia. I like that one. I also like the new 812 that they came out. The Spider. Those are
what
beautiful.
what I don't like about Ferrari is they're doing the
Yeah.
same thing that Mercedes did. Two companies that I love did
Right.
something disastrous in my opinion, but they did it for the books.
Right.
They're making too many cars. They're making cars
Yes.
that anyone within their perceived market can
Right.
buy.
There's no exclusivity anymore. When you own a for anyone can. Owning a Ferrari back in the day was like I own a Ferrari. It was sort of like I own a Ferrari. Now it's like it's saying I own a BMW. It's like a big deal. You own a Ferrari, so does everybody else.
And no, the
Used to
question is
make
which
that.
one. The question is which
Yeah,
one. If before
there's
you
too
had said
many.
I own a Ferrari, you knew which one.
There's five of them. Pick. Now it's like I own a Ferrari. It's a big deal.
If you said in the 90s I own a
Yeah,
Ferrari, it was going to be a Testarossa or an F40.
right. That's true. Or it could be a 599 TB because that's the Testarosa's next one up.
No, that was the 575.
I thought it was a 599. The 599 is the
No,
Testarossa.
599 came out in 2006 ish.
Okay. All right.
But it was the 575 TB, which had the plastic headlights rather than the
Right. Right.
pop-up
Right.
headlights.
Yep.
But what I'm trying to say is that goes to our point. The further back you go, you had exclusivity of product. Now it's
Right.
something for everyone.
Yeah.
And the one good thing, so now let me end the show by something wonderful about these Cuban cigars,
Okay.
is I absolutely love them.
I love them too when I can smoke them legally. So there
Habano
you go.
Saturday, you do a fucking good job.
Yeah.
Any Cuban cigar, and even a shit one that you make, is
It's better
better
than a New
than
World one.
any New World cigar,
Knew that was coming.
apart from one or two Davidoffs.
Oh my,
Apart from
yeah.
one or
So
two
the year of the
Davidoffs.
snake, Davidoff, which you had an
I
orgasm
won't
over
name
because
the
it
other
was star of the
ones.
year.
There's a few Davidoffs out there
Okay.
that
Yeah.
are kind of.
Good. Yeah, yeah. There you go. So that's it. That's the show today, kids. Now
And we
next week we're
riffed.
not.
That was a riffed show. We
I know we
riffed
did
it.
a good job. Now next week we're not sure if we're going to have Usman or not because with the Ramadan is 2 more weeks, and then we go back to our normal show where we're outside, everyone's smoking cigars and having a good time. So we'll have to see if Lisbon makes. Well, you're inside. We'll have to see if Lisbon's going to make the next week's show because of the time change in America, because of the breaking of the fast. There's a whole bunch of things going on with Ramadan, so we'll have to see. But Lisbon will be back, and when he's back, we're going to do this.
The number of times that's been shown without Usman actually following through on it.
Yeah, it's great. I keep showing it. Actually, when you went away to go get your post, I actually showed the intro and the exit, and then I ran as you saw that commercial. So I thought that was just kind of fun to do. So, got to keep myself occupied. Anyway, thank you for watching live. We rebroadcast this on Sunday mornings, and you can also get it on the podcast on Sunday mornings. On the podcast, it's under Two Old Farts Making Noises, and you can look for the Habano Saturday show. And thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Anything else you want to say before we run away?
I want to say, go out there, find a decent Cuban cigar. And I can give you, before you folks go away, I'll give you a recommendation before you go away. Go and try Selectos number 3 if you haven't tried it. Selectos number 3 if you haven't tried it.
Okay.
Some of my friends have gone, but I actually think
Okay.
it works. Floral cigar really
Mhm.
ups itself halfway through. And if you want
Right.
something stable and steady, go and get a Ramon Alones specially selected, as referred to the RAS, the RASS, the Ramon Alones specially selected.
There you go. There's your cigar recommendations for the week, kids. Enjoy your weekend, everybody.
And I want to say one other thing.
Sure.
Take care of yourselves and of each
There we
other.
go. Oh my God. I think I just
My
threw up in my
Jerry,
pants.
that's my Jerry Springer moment.
Really? My Springer moment is I just threw up in my pants. Anyway, thank you everybody for watching or doing. You have your cigar recommendations. We will see you next week. And for you people in Australia that are going to be watching F1, I've tried to smoke cigars at the F1 in the VIP box. Apparently that's frowned upon because something about fuel could explode, pussies. So you'll have to wait till after F1 to do smoke. But everybody enjoy your week. Have a great week. No matter where you are, we'll see you all next week. Cheers, everybody.